Welcome back to the Iraqi Dinar channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us for one of the most important updates we've seen in a long time. Today's news is creating a major buzz across the IQD community, because the Central Bank of Iraq has officially confirmed that they are now connected with all corresponding major banks around the world. And this isn't rumor, this isn't speculation, this isn't maybe or soon, this is coming directly from the CBI itself. What we are watching right now is Iraq stepping onto the global stage in a way that finally matches the direction they've been hinting at. For months, when the CBI comes out and says they've linked to global banks, they're not talking about a small technical adjustment behind the scenes. They're talking about integration, about compliance, about being visible across the global financial network. It means their banking system is no longer isolated. It means the IQD is no longer restricted to only inside Iraq's borders. It means they are positioning themselves for international use. And that's something we've been waiting for, watching for, and preparing for. And one of the most interesting pieces of commentary today came from analysts who responded by saying, "You're being trained to go international." Think about that for a moment. You don't prepare a currency for international recognition unless you plan to use it internationally. You don't upgrade systems, strengthen compliance, activate correspondent links, and modernize banking frameworks just to stay local. The CBI is moving toward something bigger, and they're doing it step by step, right in front of us. 4 months. Iraq has been making noise about digital transformation, cross-border payments, SWIFT compliance, AML upgrades, anti-money laundering laws, electronic auditing, and international standards. They have been checking off one requirement after another, preparing the financial system for a different level of operation. None of these reforms were random. None were optional. They were all part of a pathway, and today's confirmation proves they're reaching the end of that pathway. This is the moment where preparation meets execution. Now let's talk about what this actually means for the IQD. When a currency becomes visible across global banking networks, it sets the stage for international transactions, foreign settlements, and foreign exchange operations. You cannot perform those operations without a recognized, tradable, and compliant currency. It doesn't automatically mean the rate changes today. It doesn't mean we wake up tomorrow and see massive numbers on a screen. But what it does mean is that Iraq has walked through the door that leads to international functionality, and the rate discussion becomes far more relevant after that door is opened. For years, investors have been told, Iraq needs to modernize. Iraq needs to link globally. Iraq needs to meet compliance standards. And today, they're standing in front of the world saying, we did it. We're connected. That's not small. That's not symbolic. That's not cosmetic. That's foundational. Because the value of a currency is not only in its numbers, it's in its usability. If a currency can't move across borders, its value is limited. If it can, everything changes. The timing of this announcement is also interesting. We're at the end of the fiscal cycle. We're approaching the period where Iraq finalizes budgets, resets allocations, and makes strategic financial decisions. We've seen multiple officials from Iraq mention the need for a new exchange rate. We've seen them talk about international investment, global market access, and expanding the private sector. And now, suddenly, the CBI confirms global linkage. These pieces do not randomly line up, they align, because they're part of the same plan. Let's also address the idea of being trained to go international. For weeks, the CBI has been holding workshops, training sessions, compliance meetings, and technical briefings with local banks. They've been teaching them how to operate like global institutions. They've been walking them through procedures that only matter if you're preparing for international functionality. Today's announcement feels like the moment where the teachers finally say, you're ready. And here's something to think about. Global banks don't connect to unstable systems. They don't connect to systems that aren't ready. They don't connect to systems that don't meet international standards. By linking Iraq into their networks, these banks are essentially validating Iraq's readiness. They're acknowledging that Iraq has met the necessary requirements. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen without hard work behind the scenes. And it certainly doesn't happen unless Iraq is preparing for something bigger than the status quo. One of the analysts today said something powerful. There's no way you can go international without knowing what you're doing. And that's exactly right. Iraq knows exactly what they're doing. They have a roadmap. They're following it. They're checking off requirements. They're aligning with global policies. They're activating new financial technologies. And they just announced the step that many believed would be one of the final triggers. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a moment where we're not dealing with rumors. We're dealing with official confirmations. It leaves us in a space where Iraq has publicly acknowledged its global integration. It leaves us looking at a financial system that is no longer isolated, no longer disconnected, no longer behind. And it leaves us anticipating what the next move will be, because the next logical step after connecting to global banks is activating global usability. Whether the rate changes tomorrow, next week, next month, nobody can claim that with certainty. But what we can say with confidence is that Iraq has moved into a new phase. A phase where the IQD is being positioned, prepared, strengthened, and made visible at the international level. And when you reach that point, the discussion shifts from will Iraq ever go international to when will the rate reflect their international position. That's the phase we're entering. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay ready, because today's confirmation is one of the biggest steps forward we've seen in years. And as always, we'll keep bringing you the updates as soon as they break. And as we continue this breakdown, it's important to understand that global banking linkage is not just a technical step, it's a declaration. When a central bank publicly states that it is now connected to all major corresponding banks worldwide, it is essentially telling the international community, we are open for business. It signals confidence, stability, and readiness. It tells investors that Iraq is no longer positioning itself as an isolated, high-risk environment. Instead, it is moving toward becoming a legitimate player in global trade and international finance. This changes how foreign investors view Iraq, how large institutions evaluate the Iraqi dinar, and how financial markets prepare for the next phase. When currencies move from domestic containment to international accessibility, it marks the beginning of a new era. The IQD has been stuck in a limited format for years, due to war, sanctions, internal instability, corruption, and outdated financial infrastructure. Iraq has been rebuilding piece by piece, modernizing systems, improving regulations, and aligning itself with global expectations. Today's announcement is one of the strongest signs that Iraq believes it has completed that transformation. It's almost like they're saying, the training wheels are off. And when a country takes off the training wheels in finance, it usually means they're ready for valuation, transparency, and global transactions. Something else we need to talk about is timing. Big moves in global finance are never random. They don't happen on slow news weeks. They don't happen when governments are unfocused. They happen during narrow windows where budgets are being finalized, where currency policies are under review, where trade agreements are in negotiation, and where international partners are aligned. Iraq is entering that window right now. The fiscal year resets. The 2025 budget is active. The pressure on the exchange rate is intense, and the world is watching Iraq's next move. Linking globally at this exact moment is not just convenient, it's strategic. There has also been a noticeable shift in language recently. Instead of dancing around the topic, officials have been speaking openly about new rates, international integration, and market readiness. Those phrases weren't common in past years. Iraqi leadership used to avoid talking about rate changes to prevent speculation or market disruption, but in the last few months, they have become extremely comfortable discussing the need for adjustment. They've even acknowledged publicly that the current rate is temporary and not reflective of Iraq's economic reality. When political leaders, financial committees, economists, and the CBI itself all repeat the same messaging, it usually means plans are already in motion behind the scenes. Let's also consider something very important. Global banks do not link to unstable currencies unless there is a roadmap for future value. They don't waste resources connecting to systems that are stagnant or unpredictable. Correspondent banking relationships usually reflect expected growth, not stagnation. For Iraq to now be connected worldwide means the global financial community expects Iraq to rise, not fall. They expect the dinar to stabilize, not collapse. They expect trade volume to increase, not shrink. This global linkage is not simply a checkbox. It's a form of international validation. There is another layer to this conversation. Iraq's investment climate. Investors worldwide have been waiting for a sign, a clear signal that Iraq is serious about reform. And today's announcement provides exactly that. When international banks can seamlessly communicate with Iraq, transfer funds, settle payments, and verify transactions, foreign investors gain confidence. They know their money is safer. They know the system is transparent. They know Iraq is functioning under global standards. This kind of progress doesn't just support an exchange rate change. It actually requires one, at some point, because no country wants to operate on the global stage with a misaligned or artificially suppressed currency. And let's address something many analysts have discussed quietly for a long time. Iraq has always had the economic strength for a higher valued currency. It has the reserves. It has the exports. It has the natural resources. It has the global partnerships. The only missing piece was infrastructure. And now, step by step, Iraq has been building that foundation. Connecting to global banks might be the moment where everything finally lines up. The economy, the system, the compliance, the technology, the regulations all pointing toward a currency that can operate internationally. The phrase, "you're being trained to go international," continues to echo today, because it perfectly describes what we're witnessing. The CBI didn't just flip a switch today. They've been preparing for this for over a year. They've been guiding local banks, teaching them to operate under global best practices, ensuring they can interact with foreign institutions without violating international rules. You don't prepare bankers for global integration unless you plan to give them a currency that works globally. And today's move is the clearest sign yet that Iraq's domestic banking sector is ready to play in the big leagues. What makes this moment even more meaningful is that Iraq is no longer acting like a country forced into reforms. They're acting like a country choosing reforms. This is not pressure-driven. This is Iraq wants global investment. They want stronger currency stability. They want expanded trade. They want to diversify their economy. And to do all that, they need a currency that the world can trust. Today's announcement tells us they're ready to make that shift. And let's be very clear. Nobody knows the exact moment the exchange rate will change. But what we do know is that major financial transitions rarely come without signs. And today's sign was massive. When the CBI publicly claims global connectivity, they're not whispering. They're sending a message to markets, a message to investors, and perhaps even a message to Iraq's own citizens that a new phase is beginning. The groundwork has been laid. The path is visible, and it feels like we're getting closer to the moment where preparation turns into activation.